o'clock, so I think we'll make a start. Welcome to this meeting of the Strategic Planning Committee, pardon me, here at County Hall on Tuesday, the 5th of December. Apologies for absence.
Yes, Chair, I've received apologies from Councillors Foster, Robinson, Wallace, Reid, Dodd and Hill.
Thank you. Minutes of the previous meeting. Minutes of the Strategic Planning meeting held on Tuesday, the 7th of November, have been circulated. Are the members happy that these are a true record of the meeting? They are. Thank you. Disclosures of members' interests. Any members got any interests?
Thank you, Chair. On item number 5, 23/02787/FUL, I have some slightly unusual personal circumstances which could lead to there being a perception of bias, and as such I will not take part in the planning that application, and I shall leave the meeting now. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any more declarations of interest? No? So we go on to procedure. I'll just run very briefly through procedure. As most of you are aware, normally I introduce the application, make sure you've seen any site visit videos. Then our planning officer gives us any updates, any changes to the recommendations, and presents their report. We then have a public speaking slot, 5 minutes for objectors, 5 minutes for a local member, parish councillor, and 5 minutes for an applicant or supporter. And we then come to the point where committee members are invited to ask questions to our planning officers, and then we begin the debate, ask for a proposal, hopefully the proposal is seconded, then we debate the issue and take a vote on that application. So before us this afternoon, we only have one planning application, and that relates to the former St George's Hospital here in Morpeth, and this is a residential development of 94 new homes, an 84 apartment extra care facility, the preservation of the water tower, demolition of existing buildings, and all associated infrastructure. And as I say, that's St George's Hospital, Morpeth. And that is on page number 15. And I'm now going to invite our case officer, Tamsin Wood, to take us through this application. Tamsin, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. So first of all, I'd like to start with my updates. The first update that I've got is that I have updated some of the conditions which I've set out in my report. I have handed out some sheets which have got these amended conditions on for you to see. So I've only just got the amended conditions on that. So I've struck out what is to be removed from the condition and underlined the new part. But overall, the amendments are really quite minor. I've tightened up some conditions so they're more clear. I've added the correct versions of plans and reports and changed some trigger points or asked for some additional information to be submitted, such as the CMP. I've also deleted 2 conditions which we considered weren't necessary, and I've added 1 condition asking for a phase-in plan. I do have another tweak which isn't actually included in that. So if you go to condition 10 there, I am proposing that we remove the second sentence where it starts with the development hereby permitted shall not commence. And at the end of the first sentence, after have been constructed, add and completed in accordance with the approved plans for the signalisation of the junction. So that's the updates for the conditions. Secondly, it's paragraph 7.28, the third line down after just within the extra care apartment complex, I'd like to add and apartment blocks as well to that. So going back to my presentation, as already set out, this application seeks permission for residential development of 94 homes and 84 apartment extra care facility, the preservation of the water tower, the demolition of existing buildings and all associated infrastructure on part of the former St George's Hospital site in Morpeth. So this second slide here shows the location plan. As I've set out in my report, this site forms Phase C of the overall St George's site in Morpeth, which is part of the committed housing allocation shown on the right image. Phase A has been built out and Phase B is under construction. So Phase B was permitted at committee on the 3rd of November 2020. So this site comprises the final phase of development of that particular housing site allocation. So this slide shows the site outlined in red. It shows the dwellings of Phase A below and the new St George's Park Mental Hospital site to the north. Whilst I have said in my report Holborn Wood is to the east of the site, part of the St George's Hospital site actually does sweep around to the east and the Holborn Wood is beyond that. So the second slide shows the location in context with Morpeth. It lies to the northeast of Morpeth. The red line leading up to the site from the A197 is Dark Lane, and when the site is developed, residents' access out of the site will be via this road and the junction with the A197, so not via the larger Homes England site to the northwest, as no traffic other than buses and emergency vehicles are permitted to go through that site. So just to remind councillors too that this junction at the bottom of Dark Lane with 197 is to be upgraded to traffic lights to help ease the flow and impact of all the housing development on the highway network. So this has all been agreed previously and this application will not impact upon those works all being carried out. So here is another aerial view of the site. Again, you can see the houses on Phase A and St George's Park Hospital. On the actual site, you can see the remaining buildings of the former St George's Asylum Hospital. And as I've set out in my report, the buildings that do remain are considered to be non-designated heritage assets. The rest of the site is overgrown or cleared land and has some trees and small woodland on it. Other buildings have already been cleared from the site. So this site has more recently been used to store materials on it for the Phase B development. So the church amongst the trees to the southwest of the site does not fall within the red line of the location plan, so it falls out with the development area. So this slide shows the existence, this is an existing site plan, it basically shows what you've just seen on the aerial photo of the site. So the remaining asylum buildings and trees. It also shows the church and the land immediately around it outside of the red line boundary. Okay, so the next few slides show photographs of the buildings that are on the site. This first slide shows photographs taken from the applicant's design and access statement of the actual buildings. So the tall building on the left is the water tower. This is to remain and will be refurbished externally, such as bits of unsightly plaster will be taken off, brickwork made good and repaired, openings bricked up and pipe work removed. The buildings in the centre are the superintendent's building, which lies to the southern side of the site, and the building shown on the right-hand side of the photographs is the administrative building, which lies to the north of the site and just north of the water tower. Whilst the superintendent's building and administrative building are non-designated heritage assets, the proposal does include removing these. However, as I'll explain later on, these will be replaced with buildings which have been carefully designed so they respect their historic context and scale and features of the buildings which will be removed, which in turn will help to maintain the character of this part of the site, which has that connection with large, imposing hospital buildings, albeit the new replacement buildings will have apartments in them, which is more suited to the residential nature of the area now and also complies with the housing allocation. So in terms of removing these historic non-designated heritage assets, I have set out in my report a balanced argument for their removal against keeping these on site and reusing them. So this is set out between paragraphs 7.61 and 7.81 on my report. So I won't repeat these arguments, but in summary, I did consider that the scale of the harm from the proposed removal of these buildings and to the setting of the chapel and water tower, which are also non-designated heritage assets, is substantially outweighed by the safety hazards and the benefits of the proposed development, such as a high quality design and layout, respectful of the existing buildings on site and its historic past, homes that meet nationally described space standards and are energy efficient, and the provision of an extra care scheme which is needed in the area. And I'll just quickly flick through some more photographs that I've took on site. The superintendent's building. That's the water tower. The water tower with administrative buildings to the rear. Okay, so moving on to the proposed site plan now. So this slide shows the layout of the proposal. This shows the water tower feature central to the site, which is to remain, and apartment blocks B and C, which will replace the administrative building, are located either side of it. The site plan shows an area of landscaped open space to the southern side of the water tower, which will be a nice feature for residents to use and children to play, although it won't have any formal play equipment. Centrally into the southern side of the site, a further apartment block is proposed, which will replace the superintendent's building. In front of this, and to the south, will be a further landscaped open space area, and then the Suds Pond, which will form part of the sustainable drainage system. So that will lie to the south of this. The houses are proposed to the east and west of this central developed area and will be located along a new estate road. So each property will have its own parking, garden, and garage and amenity space. The proposal also includes landscaped areas with planting to the eastern side of the site and tree planting throughout the site too. The proposal also includes the extra care facility, which is also referred to as the community wellbeing facility on some plans. So this is the large T-shaped building, which is located to the western side of the site. So this will have its own curtilage and own parking and landscaped gardens, which will be designed for people with dementia to use. For example, they won't have certain types of plants planted in case they've got poisonous berries, which people with dementia could possibly eat. So that part of the proposal has been specifically designed for the people that will live there. As I've already said, access will be via Dark Lane and the new estate road. The extra care facility will also be accessed via this estate road, and some of the houses to the southern side of the site will be accessed via the existing road that lies between Phase A and Phase B. Visitor parking is also proposed around the site, and throughout the whole site, EV charging is also proposed. To help offset any biodiversity loss, an area of biodiversity net gain will be established off-site, and this will be secured via Section 106. So that site will be located between the application site and the A197. So the next three slides show the elevations of the proposed apartment blocks. The first one is Block A, which is proposed to the southern side of the site. So this will have 12 apartments. It would be 3 stories in height and constructed in brick. It will have windows designed to replicate the vertical and traditional appearance of the superintendent's building that it will replace. It will have brick stringer coursework across the building to give it interest, and sills and lintels to also help replicate the stone sills and lintels that the superintendent's building has. Overall, this has been designed to help maintain the character of this part of the site and reflect the building that was on there. So blocks B and C will be located either side of the water tower, and these are very similar, just handed versions of each other. These will have 10 apartments in each of them. There will be 3 stories in height to the front where they are next to the water tower, and further to the north, they will be set down to 2 stories in height. These will be actually really similar in appearance to Block A in terms of the features and the materials that will be used. So these will replace the administrative buildings next to the water tower. But through using similar features and traditional design features, this will also help to maintain some of the character around that part of the site, which in turn will help in terms of limiting the impact on the setting of the water tower. So parking for these apartments will be provided in a courtyard in the centre of these 2 apartment blocks. So the next 3 slides are some visuals taken from the design and access statement of the apartments and what they will look like into context with the water tower and the landscaped areas to the front of the tower as well. Okay, so the next 5 slides show examples of some of the houses that are proposed on the site. Overall, there are 9 dwelling types proposed, comprising 2 2-bedroomed, 17 3-bedroomed, 28 4-bedroom dwellings and 15 5-bedroom dwellings. All would be 2 stories in height. 2 types would have rooms in the roof. These will all have similar window features and similar architectural details. They'll also have a row of brick stringers. These similar features will also help provide consistency across the site and reflect the design features of the apartments as well. Okay, so as part of this scheme, an extra care facility is also proposed. This is also known as the Community Wellbeing Facility on some of the plans, as I've already mentioned. I've set out under paragraphs 3.4 to 3.8 the full description of this part of the proposal and how this will be managed and the benefits of this part of the scheme. So in terms of construction, it will consist of a T-shaped 3 and 4 storey block. It'll have 84 apartments within it, 15 of which will be for people who've got dementia, and the remaining apartments will be for people who have some kinds of needs, who will be over 50 years, 55 years of age. So everyone that will live there will have some form of additional needs that require help. 1 apartment is for visitors to stay. On the ground floor, a cafe is also proposed, which residents from the surrounding area can also use, and there'll be a hairdresser's too. There will be communal rooms for the residents to use too, including a lounge. As I have set out in my report, this facility has been developed in consultation with Carbon Homes, who will be managing the development once it's complete, and NCC Adult Services, who fully support this, given there is an identified need for extra care facilities in the Morpeth area, which is set out in the local plan as well. So it will provide 84 apartments for people with needs. As stated in my report, sets out the considerable benefits of this part of the scheme. So the next slide show the elevations of the building. So again, it's 3 and 4 stories in height. This will look a bit more modern than the apartments on site. However, it's not considered this is going to detract from the appearance of the site. And I've got some visuals of this community wellbeing facility as well from the design and access statement. Okay. Now, I have explained this within my report at paragraph 7.49 to 7.57. However, I do want to go over this again with you just to make it completely, absolutely clear to you, and that is, as part of this application, the applicant has submitted a viability assessment to show the development would be unviable if the applicant had to pay all the Section 106 contributions. It is also to show that whilst the applicant's intention is to provide additional on-site affordable housing, which will be provided in partnership with Carbon Homes and will consist of the 84-unit apartment block being developed as a wellbeing living scheme, it is actually enabled to provide a policy-compliant on-site affordable housing scheme, so with none of the units tied to a Section 106. This will in turn enable Homes England funding, though, to be applied to the delivery of the extra care scheme. So just for further knowledge and to make the committee aware, Homes England will not guarantee grant funding for policy requirements Section 106 units unless it can be proven that the open market dwellings do not cross-subsidise the affordable housing. However, due to viability on the site, it's not relevant. So the Section 106 contributions have all been set out under paragraph 7.15 to 7.48. So that is everything that we would require under this proposal to make it policy compliant. So this includes affordable housing, contributions towards education, health, coastal mitigation, parks and gardens, and provision for young children, and the bus service. Now, as I have set out under the viability section, we have had a qualified independent valuer review the viability assessment, who overall considers the scheme cannot viably support any of the plan and policy contributions. His modelling also shows that even if the allowance is reduced by in the region of 1.5 million, the scheme would only just meet the viability threshold. He does state that the only outstanding option for the council on the viability testing would therefore be to engage a third-party quantity surveyor to thoroughly review the cost plan submitted by the applicant. This would be with a view to determining whether any significant savings could be found in the costs, which would improve the scheme viability. However, he has found that quantity surveyors are adopting a cautious approach to costs at the moment, owing to ongoing build cost inflation and general uncertainty in the market. So he therefore remains unconvinced that engaging a third-party quantity surveyor here would result in the scheme being able to deliver any substantial planning policies. So, taking into account the valuer's report and advice, we have agreed that in order to help the scheme go ahead, which we do feel has a range of benefits, we will not be asking for any of the Section 106 contributions. This means we will not be seeking any contributions towards education, health, parks and gardens, and provision for young children and the bus service. We are still seeking the coastal mitigation contribution and the biodiversity off-site habitat creation area through a Section 106, and we will also include a viability clause which would require a further viability review mechanism, clawback, which could enable the council to recover some of those contributions if the market improved in the future or significant savings were to be found in the construction costs at a later date. So, as the scheme is unviable, we've also agreed that the extra care facility, which will provide affordable rented accommodation through Carbon, does not have any of its apartments tied to a Section 106, which would otherwise make them affordable in policy terms. So this will make it possible for Carbon Homes to apply for Homes England grant without having to demonstrate that there was no cross-subsidy from the open market units, and this will allow Carbon Homes to purchase the Wellbeing Living Scheme's extra care centre from the applicant on completion. As stated above, the intention is for the 84-unit apartment block to be developed with the intention for Carbon Homes to take ownership and provide a wellbeing living scheme extra care facility, which is why throughout the applicant's evidence and documentation, it often refers to it being the affordable housing element of the proposal. However, again, due to the viability, it will not, in fact, provide on-site policy required affordable units, which would be tied to the Section 106. Therefore, although the applicant intends to provide affordable units, which would amount to actually 47% of the site, these will be identified as additional affordable housing units outside of the Section 106 and cannot be counted towards the wider site's affordable housing requirements, where NCC would normally be able to influence the tenure types of the scheme. So, as the units cannot be bound to a Section 106, there is therefore a risk that the applicant could decide to sell the site after the application is approved and there's no legal standing for the new owners to provide any affordable housing, like the wellbeing extra care facility. A plan and balance must therefore be made in regard to the loss of securing all the Section 106 contributions I have set out in not being able to secure the affordable housing by the Section 106 agreement against the merits of the planning application, which, as confirmed by the applicant, would not otherwise go ahead. So I have discussed this under paragraph 7.56, where I have come to the conclusion that the benefits of this scheme would outweigh the loss of those contributions. So in addition, to give some comfort to councillors, the design and access statement clearly sets out the objectives of the extra care scheme and how this will be managed. So this will be listed as an approved document. The building has been specifically designed to, alongside Carbon and NCC Adult Services, and it is likely that a redesign would be needed if it was purely for open market housing, which could require a variation of permission or future planning application. We will also include that viability clawback mechanism as well, which requires a further 2 viability assessments to be carried out approximately halfway and towards the end of construction, so we could potentially claw back some money towards the Section 106 contributions. So overall, my recommendation is therefore to grant planning permission subject to the 106 agreement to secure off-site biodiversity net gain, to fund £23,025 towards the coastal mitigation measure service, to include a viability review clawback mechanism, and subject to the conditions in my report and with the amendments to those I've set out in my notes circulated at the beginning and the other amendment that I made to condition 10 earlier.
Thank you. Chair, can I,
Of course.
thank you. Can I just add something for members on this one? I think Tamsin's done a very wonderful job of trying to explain an inordinately complex process to negotiate this scheme. This has been one of the most unusual schemes we've handled for several years in this authority, because we've been trying to achieve several outcomes. A really strong design that wasn't just identikit, that gave a sense of place. To deliver extra care, which is something so our adult services have really underlined the need for here, and to tackle the issue of viability on this one. Okay, this scheme does not, therefore, I think this is the key message, does not deliver affordable housing in its conventional sense, which would be your 10% of a standard house type, say for affordable housing. But it does deliver this thing, and it's an unusual phrase. We call them additional affordable units, where they are, in fact, affordable housing units, but they do not meet the normal definition. But I'd ask members to keep in mind that that rate is at 47% on this scheme, and Tamsin has been successful in driving out, I would suggest, a very strong design for this. We'll best go into the presentations by speakers, Chair, but I think we need to come back to some questions about all of these issues, because this has been a very finely worked up scheme to get it to this stage, and it is complex.
Thank you very much indeed. Members of the committee, we now come to our public speaking slots. We have an objector, Jane Cadman, and we have supporters, Melissa Flynn and Martin Hawthorne. Can I ask Jane Cadman to come to the seat and say your piece, madam? You've got 5 minutes. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I live in Thorpe Avenue, which is the older estate adjacent and west of the St George's access road to the new development. My home was on slide 1. I live very close to this estate. I support the building of the housing, the extra care home and the general site plan. I partially oppose the transport statement and travel plan, and I'm here in the interests of the safety and well-being of the residents of my estate to the west of the St George's access road. In particular, I would ask the Council and Planning Committee to revise and review the plans for the changes to the junction at the St George's access road where it meets the 197. I agree with this statement in the documents that the junction cannot take more traffic. My issue is the proposal for traffic lights which stop and block vehicles, and would suggest that either widening the junction or a roundabout would permit free flow traffic. No other entry or exit road from Morpeth has traffic lights. I've been informed by the users of Tommy's Field opposite this junction that the council have already acquired land from this area for use as a roundabout. I'm here because currently there are temporary roadworks at this junction, including traffic lights. And this is demonstrating the effect of traffic lights on that traffic and the surrounding areas. Monday morning, 9:10, a quiet time, the school rush has gone. I tried to leave my road. It was blocked, as always. The traffic queue, caused by the traffic lights of the junction, went past Morrison's, past the new leisure centre, over the Telford Bridge, past Mafeking roundabout, all the way up to the Sun Inn, so crossed completely from one side to the other. I support the transport statement where it suggests it's going to keep clear signage on the tarmac in front of my road, Thorpe Avenue and Howard Terrace. I would urge the council to do that as fast as possible so we can actually safely exit and access our roads. I would like to point out the proximity of my estate to the new development. My house was on slide 1, but all the houses in Thorpe Avenue abut the St George's Access Road. One house, one garden. That is only distance between them. At the bottom of the road, with the junction where Thorpe Avenue and the access road meet the 197, it's 45 metres. One house, one garden, 45 metres. It's no distance at all. I live in this estate, and largely there are 4 roads in the estate, but a lot of the housing is of the era where cars and garage didn't exist. It's very close packed. So the residents of my estate use just 2 roads to access the local transport system. One is mine, Thorpe Avenue, and the other is Fenwick Road, which feeds into Howard Terrace. These roads are currently blocked most of the time by the traffic lights. I note that 115 people were consulted on this proposal. However, not one of my neighbours, including myself, received that notification. At present, with the traffic lights in place, 1 coach or 2 small vehicles can queue at the traffic lights before the entrance of Thorpe Avenue is blocked. So 1 extra vehicle, 3 maximum, usually 2, and I can't get out of my road. So in summary, I would like the planning committee to consider the safety and road usage of existing residents of Morpeth on the adjacent site to this estate, as well as the users of St George's Access Road. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Cadman. Thank you. I'd now like to invite supporters of the scheme, Melissa Flynn and Martin Hawthorne, who presumably are going to share the 5 minutes.
Hello everyone, I'm Melissa Flynn, Head of Development at Countryside Partnerships. We are the applicant for this 3rd and final phase of development on brownfield land at the former St George's Hospital. Members will be aware that the site has been identified for regeneration in the adopted development plan for over 2 decades and has previous outline consent. As part of this phase, we are proposing 94 dwellings together with an 84-unit community wellbeing facility. It is fair to say that this is the most challenging part of the site to deliver, with derelict hospital buildings still to demolish whilst maintaining access to the existing hospital. It is also the most interesting part of the site, and we have put a lot of effort into designing bespoke apartments that reflect the character of the former hospital buildings and integrate with the water tower which is being retained. We do acknowledge that there have been a number of public comments in relation to the access road on the planning portal and also to us directly. The access road has been difficult to manage, and given the constraints, we have had to close off access for a period of time. This has caused a lot of inconvenience for the public, which we can only apologise for. We hope that the public and the council can see, however, that we've made good progress with this and are genuinely trying to finish the works and the disruption to the public as soon as possible. Please note that the signalised junctions have already been approved and this does not form part of the application. Our proposed development will deliver the following benefits: an 84-unit community wellbeing facility, including 15 dementia apartments and an on-site bistro open to the local community, 94 new homes, the refurbishment of the existing water tower, 10% biodiversity net gain, regeneration of a brownfield site and investment in the local economy. The submitted viability appraisal demonstrates that we cannot provide the affordable housing and all the financial contributions that would ordinarily be requested. We are keen to reiterate, however, that we do still intend to deliver 83 units on the site as affordable housing through the Community Wellbeing Facility with Homes England grant funding. If the Section 106 agreement secured affordable housing, we would not be able to do this. As a strategic partner of Homes England ourselves, we have commitments to deliver affordable housing across our sites and often over-deliver above policy requirements. We are excited to deliver this flagship specialist affordable housing scheme with Carbon Homes, and I'm going to pass to Martin Hawthorne, who will explain a bit more about this.
Thank you, Melissa. I'm speaking in support of Carbon Homes' 84-unit extra care scheme as part of the wider Countryside application. As you know, councillors, your authority is concerned with the escalating costs of providing care and has a shortage of care workers. It is a key priority within the council's extra care and independent supported living strategy for you to support opportunities which improve services for older people and improve efficiency and lower running costs. In addition, those with a medium to high care need currently are finding that moving to an expensive care home is possibly their only option. By creating a vibrant home from home, these residents can live independent lives in self-contained apartments. Residents can lead their best lives. Care staff can offer their services to residents all under one roof, making the provision of care better, more cost-effective and efficient. It will reduce the need for some to have to go to a care home at all, and it will bring older people together, lowering isolation. Secondly, we have created a team to design this wonderful place. Your adult social care staff have been with Carbon all the way, from initial brief to now. Together, we have created a scheme which caters for those with a high need, medium and lower care needs, those with dementia, and those with bariatric requirements. And the environment has a bistro, hairdressers, communal lounges, all open to the wider community. It will be a lovely place for residents, families and friends to meet. There will be beautiful, well-stocked grounds to enjoy. Finally, Carbon is a safe pair of hands. We have several successful facilities in the county already offering this kind of service. Carbon's board has approved the scheme in advance of this meeting and has pledged the capital required. The care team, who will be commissioned by the council, will provide the care and Carbon will run the building. Thank you for listening. We hope that you will approve this exemplar scheme and realise the vision for Morpeth and Northumberland.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Good timing. Ladies and gentlemen of the committee, have you any questions you would like to put to our planning officers? Councillor Stewart.
I'm just going to give an overview here. So we all know that Morpeth's very popular and there's been a lot of developments over the years. It is a lovely place to go. A lot of staff will be working at this extra care centre and there'll be a lot of visitors coming there as well as the residents. Have we actually got it right in this application so we don't cause even extra problems? And we've spoken about the junction there, but also have we got the footpaths and the lighting and all sorts of support so people can come and go from there, not necessarily by car. And there's comments in there about the bus services there. Will that be adequate as well? We know there are some difficulties with bus services this time. So just a general overview about how people get.
Yes, Councillor Stewart. Yes, the full assessment's been undertaken with regards to the housing and the extra care facility, including the extra facilities within it for the shops and the hairdressers and what have you. The junction that has been modified and accepted under a previous plan application, and as part of that development, footways have been provided, and phasing within the lights at the junction will enable pedestrians to get in and out there. It is a steep bank, but pedestrians can walk up it if the fuel the desire. Cycling might not be as easy, might be easy getting down, but not back up. So yeah, all those things have been taken into consideration. The extra care facility, we've got a parking strategy, so there's a condition on there that they will submit how they're going to deal with the parking for that, so it'll not overflow into the residential area. So all those things have been taken into consideration, along with the bus service as well on previous applications.
Thank you. Councillor Hutchinson.
I've got a couple of things, Chairman. One is responses from the police and the fire brigade. They had a response in their responses and made some comments. Has anything been followed up on that?
So the applicant's been made aware of all the consultation responses that have come in, and so they've been made aware of the fire brigade and the police. I think they have made amendments to the scheme as well. Yeah. I might not have specifically said that, but it has been ongoing and amendments have been made, and we have been getting consultation responses. And yeah, and in terms of the fire and rescue service, this has been addressed. I know it has been addressed, but I don't have the details of how it has. Do you deal with the fire service and the layout and the layout?
It's the building control.
Right, yeah. But I know recently I have been advised that the access routes and the hard standing and their requirement to get to the fire hoses has been taken account in the revised layout. So yeah.
Yeah. So first, is like other major schemes, complex schemes, this site, the design is also subject to what we call a road safety audit, which is a final design process where the safe operations for car users, pedestrians and cyclists is looked at in terms of all users, including emergency services. And that process will continue through the highways adoptions process once permission, if your minor 2 is granted.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I do remember some specific alterations were made to the extra care facility in accordance with what the police were advising.
Thanks. The other one, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was a long presentation, but are there no 106 agreements or contributions to education or to health?
No, yes, that was the final part of my presentation, which I was going over.
Just
that's due to viability.
I thought that's what you said.
Yeah.
Thanks. And the other one is on page 90, sorry, not 96, 69. Informatives, number 40, which is a reminder not to deposit mud, debris, rubbish on the highways, etc. Should there not have been a condition for a wheel wash on site? Because I've seen a lot of sites which theoretically have had wheel washers, and a lot of debris has been put on the road.
So
would a condition not be more beneficial than a reminder?
Yeah, we do have the conditions, so the construction management plan condition on there, so those details will be submitted as part of that, the wheel washing details. I think, yeah, have we got the wording of that condition here?
It's condition 9.
Condition 9.
I've looked through the conditions and couldn't find it anywhere.
Yeah, the vehicle cleaning facilities.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Gamera Thompson.
Thanks, Chair. Tasman, is the is the value of the extra care housing equal to or more the value we would normally be expecting to extract from the usual Section 106 agreements?
Are you talking about in terms of what it's...
So normally we get a sum of money for education, health, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Is what we're getting instead equal to or more or less than what we would normally be expecting?
Yeah, I can answer this one, Councillor Thompson. Yeah, the policy requirement normally for affordable housing under the new local plan policy is either 10, 20 or 30%. This is a 47% contribution. And the reason why we took external advice on the viability is that at that level of provision and the abnormal costs on the site means that the scheme cannot pay for additional Section 106 payments above that. However, I think it's fair to say that given the need for this type of facility, that if we put aside overall viability to one side for a moment, the provision of an extra care facility of this scale is in excess of what we would secure normally by the affordable housing policy requirements in the 106.
Thank you. Martin Swinbank.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, this is obviously complicated. The question that I suppose arises straight away is, we have Section 106 there to provide when there's requirement for extra schooling, extra health facility, etc. And we're not going to provide that with the scheme as it stands. So the question that I think members of the public will be asking is, if there are extra children, there are extra need for healthcare, how is that going to be provided? Where does the money come from to do that? Because we're always asked, as members, we're always asked, we get new housing, but we don't get the facility to support that housing. So I don't know how we square that circle.
Yeah. What was the education requirement before it was discounted?
I think it was about 700-something thousand.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's obviously a really significant question, Councillor Swinbank. I think there are probably two ways of looking at this, in that the plan policy on developer contributions in the new local plan sets out a series of policy asks, and those include health, education, if you will. And the viability of that ask was tested when we prepared the local plan as part of the public examination. Okay. What the inspectorate looked for is not that every single scheme will be able to pay their share of those contributions, but 85% of all typical schemes would. And so the logic there is that a proportion wouldn't be able to pay for them, and that proportion would be schemes that weren't viable for the reason of special circumstance, or site condition, whatever. I think the thing to bear in mind here as well is that 47% of the units here are for special care, and those themselves will not likely be generating an impact on educational capacity requirements, either the private housing will. I do think it's, though, fair to say that the flip side of the argument must also hold true, in that a more elderly population will have a greater impact on healthcare capacity. And the only thing I would observe here is that the health contributions, remember, would be paying for capital costs rather than revenue costs. And there is a extremely new health facility very near to this site, which was provided as part of NHS growth and other housing schemes in the area. It is the case, though, and this is why Tamsin took the time to present this one in the way she did, in that this is a scheme where we cannot square the circle, in that delivering this level of care on this site with this sort of quality, it simply cannot pay the viability. It cannot pay the other 106 contributions because of viability. And all I can offer you is the reassurance that we didn't just accept the applicant's figures in this regard, but we actually commissioned the person who did the local plan viability work for us to carry out the assessment. And there was an iterative back and forth looking at costs on this, and his final conclusion was absolutely that it could not make its full contributions. There is a clawback provision in there, and if the financial circumstances change such that margins are better, we do have the ability to claw 106 funding back if sales prices and costs are different. We cannot do any more. All I can say is that in the past, many schemes, going back to the 1980s and 90s, didn't contribute anything to infrastructure. This scheme is one which we have to do a very careful balancing exercise for. So we deliberately have presented this scheme not in a way which says it isn't without its tensions, but the conclusion is the overall, in the wider public interest, is there is a greater benefit than there is harm. But it is a complex and convoluted discussion to get to that conclusion. Sorry, that was a very long answer.
Yes, you want to come back?
Yes, well, not on that, but on a separate question. Is there any need to sequence this development? Is there any danger that part of it gets developed and another part doesn't get developed, either way around?
Can I answer this one as well? Yeah, that's another interesting question, because the highway improvement works on what's been granted already are tied to certain trigger points, and I think it's the creation of the 108th house on Phase B. Because we're granting this, there is a risk that, for the sake of argument, the developer could pull back and stop the creation of the existing permissions just before that point, and then build this out. So we've rejigged the conditions such that it advances the works in terms of what's been agreed already to reflect we've got an existing scheme and a new scheme. And Tamsin has been working very hard to come up with a set of conditions which assure delivery in advance of where it would have been otherwise. Okay. That's right, isn't it?
Committee members, any more questions this afternoon? Has anyone got a proposal they'd like to put forward? Councillor Stewart. Thank you. Is that seconded? Councillor Anne Thompson, you're seconding the proposal. Thank you. Anybody wish to speak to the proposal this afternoon? Councillor Hutchinson.
It's one of those very close things, I think, one of these 4951 jobs. I'm not happy about no 106 agreement, no finance, etc., etc. But understand that if there was a one, the scheme couldn't go ahead. And this has been on the cards for years, really. And trying to get to some sort of an amicable agreement's been, it's taken some doing. So I presume, I trust you've managed to do that amicably. I just hope it doesn't come back to bite us someday when we discover that our schools are overflowing and can't afford to teach the kids, and our health services isn't adequately funded because of the extra housing, not just here but throughout. I'll support this. I'll give it the extra percentage and support this, but I've got I'm wary about it. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor.
Thanks, Chair. I think I have to disagree with Councillor Hutchinson slightly there, because for me, this scheme shows the difficulties in getting something like this off the ground, and very much working in healthcare, this is vitally needed. We are behind in other local authorities, have a lot more extra care sheltered, and it supports the hospitals to help with discharge, to help with planning, to understand, where people can move on to. And we have to recognise that in this country by 2025 we will have 1 million people living with dementia, and that's due to increase to about 1.6 million by 2040. This is a huge issue going forward, so whilst I would love to see it being done with losses to companies because I don't really care about that side of things. That is not the real world. I can't live like that. So for me, the value of it far outweighs the things that we're not getting from the 106, and it's looking at it from a different lens of actually the savings that we'll make and the way that we'll be able to move people on within the healthcare system far outweigh the loss of those things that the public will look at, like the money for other areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Gary Thompson?
Yes, Councillor Watson's completely correct. The benefit of the scheme completely outweighs what we're not getting. And what doesn't get mentioned, and what doesn't get mentioned is when it comes to the housing stock, a lot of the people who will be going into this supported housing then freeze up maybe in a 2 or a 3 or a 4 bedroom house elsewhere within the local housing stock. So while you're not getting affordable housing built on that site, you're still going to be freeing up quite a lot as people move from their home into this supported living. So it's a great scheme, great for Morpeth.
Thank you. And just from the chair, you know, I would like to say that it is a very special facility and great benefit to the community. You know, we're always looking at our housing applications. What is the public benefit? Here, you know, we are getting something very, very special that is going to benefit Morpeth and the wider area. And, you know, we've got to look at it in those terms. Yes, you know, there's no 106 for education or health, but look at the facility we're getting. It's going to be good. Great benefits to Morpeth and the wider area, so it has my full support. Ladies and gentlemen of the committee.
Can I just clarify the proposal before we...
Yes, we're going to read out the proposal.
Thanks, Councillor Stewart, can I just confirm that it's a recommendation to grant the permission in accordance with the officer recommendation with the 106 to secure the biodiversity net gain and the coastal mitigation contribution, and with the viability review and clawback and the conditions that were set out in your report and as updated by Tamsin earlier. Thank you. That's seconded, Councillor Thompson.
Yes, it is. All those in favour of the proposal? Unanimous, thank you. None against. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. The other items on our agenda this afternoon are the planning appeals update, pages 71 to 84. More for information than anything else. Also the section 106 update, again for members' information, pages 85 to 88. I have no urgent business, but just to remind members that we have a presentation later this afternoon. I'm going to call for a break for 5 or 10 minutes and then invite our friends in from education.
Thanks, Chair. Can I say